What's up everyone, Piscean here, and I had Claude Anthropic AI, my AI agent, one of them, help me create a unrestricted now, academic document, Advanced Study Edition, and this is Quantum Astrology and Human Origins, an advanced technical treatise on celestial mechanics, quantum entanglement, and the stellar architecture of the human psyche. What I really appreciate about this AI agent is that it was able to craft this document like it was my memorandum that I presented a few days ago, or yesterday actually. It was able to craft this out so it looks like an actual magazine. It actually looks like a technical document in regards to astrology, and that's what I really appreciate, is that this model is free. It doesn't let me do it every single minute of every day without paying for the actual AI, so I only am able to use it so many times before my free limit is up. But before we get started, please like, subscribe, comment, share if you dare, and care with peace and love. Piscean here to tell you I'm grateful for every single subscriber I have, everybody that comments, views my videos, likes my videos, shares my videos. I really appreciate you guys with peace and love. So, as we can see, we even get to have our fucking planetary glyphs, our images, our signals of what planets actually look like. And we even get, just a complete architecture here of what this is going to entail. Like right on the bottom, it tells us this volume integrates theoretical frameworks from quantum physics, cosmological biology, archaeoastronomy, and depth psychology in a unified speculative synthesis. Mathematical formalisms are presented as conceptual bridges, not empirical proof. We even have a small little tag here to show what the company logo or brand would be. And we have in the corner, of course, the name of this, Quantum Astrology and Human Origins, and that's exactly what we're going over. And we even get our table of contents where we actually get it fully fledged out like a textbook, and I really appreciate Claude Anthropic AI for being able to do this right now, even if it's not, as much as I would like it to be able to with the free model version. This is great, in my opinion. We can see the preface is on the necessity of a unified celestial framework. Chapter 1 is quantum mechanics and the classical astrological paradigm, while Chapter 2 is human origins and stellar nucleosynthesis. Chapter 3 is non-locality, entanglement, and the mechanism of aspect. Chapter 4 is wave function collapse and the natal moment. Chapter 5 is planetary archetypes as quantum attractor states. We even get the page number, exactly where these chapters are starting, like an actual textbook. Chapter 6 is our fixed stars, dark matter, and the Birkeland current web. Chapter 7 is lunar nodes, quantum interference, and karmic amplitudes, while Chapter 8 is consciousness, work or theory, and the observer effect. All the way down to Chapter 9, which is toward a unified field theory of astrological influence. We get an Appendix A, which has our mathematical notation and symbol reference, as well as actual references, bibliography, and cited works. So this is really exciting to me that I can actually fledge this out as if I am a professor, and I can create these literatures, these works, to benefit the masses, hopefully eventually very soon. So now I want to go into our preface here, which is amazing, on the necessity of a unified celestial framework. We have a whole page, or actually 2 pages, dedicated to what this actually entails here. So people aren't fucking confused when they read my textbooks and they're actually trying to learn astrology in all its various formats. The cosmos is not a collection of separate objects, but an undivided whole in continuous motion. A quote by David Bohm, wholeness and the implicate order. We see here our preface says, the discipline of astrology in its conventional presentation has long occupied an uncomfortable position at the margins of academic discourse, acknowledged by the humanities for its mythopoetic richness, dismissed by the sciences for its apparent incompatibility with mechanistic causality. This textbook represents a systematic attempt to dissolve that bifurcation by situating astrological theory within the most advanced available framework of theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, quantum field theory, and the emerging paradigm of quantum consciousness. Very, very simple in the first paragraph right there. What are we talking about? The core thesis of this volume is not that astrology operates through Newtonian gravitational attraction, a mechanism demonstrably insufficient given the relative gravitational magnitudes involved, but rather that the celestial bodies function as non-local coordinators of probability amplitude within the quantum field structure of space-time. The birth chart in this framework records the precise configuration of quantum field eigenstates at the moment of decoherence into biological individuality. Also, there will be a link in the description to this PDF file, as I had it on my memorandum videos as well. Just making sure that I think I have it on one of them. There's a link to the document, or there should be a link to the document. And I forgot to add those. Okay, I'll make sure to add those links as soon as I finish up this video. Now, simultaneously, this volume addresses what may be called the stellar ancestry question, the introconvertible fact, now thoroughly established by nuclear astrophysics, that the elements composing the human body were forged in the nuclear furnaces of pre-solar stars. The carbon in our neurons, the iron in our blood, the calcium in our bones, all were synthesized through stellar nucleosynthesis across billions of years before being scattered into the interstellar medium by supernova events. Humanity does not merely observe the cosmos from the outside, humanity is the cosmos observing itself from within. And then we have our epistemological notice down here. That's what this is. So we don't get in trouble. The mathematical formalisms presented in this volume serve as structural analogies and conceptual bridges between quantum mechanical principles and astrological phenomena. They are not presented as empirically validated causal mechanisms. The reader is encouraged to evaluate each framework on its internal coherence and heuristic utility. This is an integrative, speculative synthesis operating on the intersection of physics, mythology, depth psychology, and archaeoastronomical scholarship. So the organization of this volume proceeds from foundational quantum mechanics in Chapter 1 through stellar human origins in Chapter 2 into the core operational mechanisms proposed for astrological influences in Chapter 3 through 5 through the specialized topics of fixed stars and dark matter in Chapter 6, the lunar nodes in Chapter 7, and consciousness in Chapter 8, concluding with the proposed unified field formalism in Chapter 9 and a comprehensive reference section. The authors gratefully acknowledge the foundational work of David Bohm, Erwin Schrödinger, Roger Penrose, Stuart Hameroff, Carl Gustav Jung, Dane Rudar, and the many astronomers, physicists, and astrologers whose shoulders we stand upon in attempting this synthesis. This shows us that Claude AI is capable of making very good material in regards to actual fully fledged documents. We see this. It's bold in color. It's set up properly with the subtitle. It says our edition, who it's compiled by, even though, by the way, this is, of course, not a real institute. I'm making this video, me, Riley V, also known as Piscean X05 on YouTube. And I got the help with AI. And I'm being very explicit about it because I don't want to get sued or be in trouble for saying this work is mine when it's not mine, it's AI's. So I want to look at Chapter 1, which is quantum mechanics and the classical astrological paradigm here, toward a unified non-local framework for celestial influence. So we look at the failure of the gravitational objection. And this is very interesting because Claude AI was able to create all these fully fledged chapters and even give us specific sections and even images for these chapters. So we see 1.1 is the failure of the gravitational objection. The most common scientific objection to astrological theory invokes the comparative weakness of planetary gravitational fields at terrestrial distances. Jupiter, the most massive planet in our solar system, exerts a gravitational influence on a newborn infant roughly equivalent to that of an obstetrician standing 1 meter distant. This Newtonian analysis correctly dispenses with gravitational mechanism, but it simultaneously reveals the inadequacy of Newtonian mechanics as the operative framework for evaluating astrological claims. Quantum mechanics, formalized between 1900 and 1930, established that at the deepest level of physical reality, the universe does not operate through the transfer of classical forces, but between isolated particles. It operates through probability amplitudes, non-local correlations, and field configurations that defy classical intuitions about separability and locality. The quantum vacuum, the lowest energy state of a quantum field, is not empty space, but a seething plenum of virtual particle pairs, zero-point fluctuations, and field excitations. Onto our foundational quantum formalism, we see the Schrödinger equation. The time-dependent Schrödinger equation governs the evolution of the quantum state vector in Hilbert space. RT is the quantum state vector, by the way. The complete probabilistic description of any quantum system, and we have this formula here. It shows us the Schrödinger equation is a reduced Planck constant. H is the Hamiltonian operator encoding total system energy, while our other sigil is the quantum state vector in Hilbert space. I'm bad at remembering the names of fucking sigils. The state vector contains all physically accessible information about the system. That's what we'll call it. Crucially, before measurement, the state vector exists in a superposition of all possible states, each with an associated probability amplitude. Okay? The superposition principle is without analog in classical mechanics and constitutes the first pillar of the quantum astrological bridge. The natal chart, interpreted as a measurement event, selects a specific eigenstate from the superposition of possible lives. Alright, so we left off 1.2, and we went over this equation, and now we're on to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So it's here, Heisenberg's uncertainty relations establish that certain pairs of observable quantities cannot simultaneously possess definite values. And we see this formula, which clearly shows us aspects, first of all, because when we see a triangle, we know we're talking about trines and aspects, Ptolemaic aspects. And we also see the planet sigils here. Wait a minute. I might be tweaking out. I don't think that's... Okay, we'll actually go over that in more detail. So, position momentum and energy-time uncertainty relations. So the triangle denotes standard deviation of the probability distribution, while the inequalities are exact, not approximations. The energy-time uncertainty relation has a profound implication for the interpretation of the natal moment. A birth event of infinitely precise temporal specification would require infinite energy uncertainty, rendering its energetic configuration fundamentally indeterminate. Conversely, a finite temporal uncertainty at birth permits a corresponding energetic resolution. The astrological chart represents a measurement within this uncertainty window. Alright, now let's look at quantum superposition, the zodiacal Hilbert space. So let us define a zodiacal Hilbert space. So Z spanned by an orthonormal basis of 12 eigenstates corresponding to the 12 zodiacal sectors. Any planetary state vector may be expressed as a superposition, and we see this formula here. Zodiacal superposition, C underscore K, right here, are complex probability amplitudes, where C underscore K squared gives the probability of finding the planet in zodiacal sector K upon measurement, i.e. natal chart casting. Interesting. So we even get a technical note here on the legitimacy of Hilbert space analogy. And this is amazing to me. This is just perfect. The application of Hilbert space formalism to zodiacal sectors is a structural analogy, not a literal claim that zodiacal sectors are quantum mechanical eigenstates of some physical Hamiltonian. Alright? So the analogy is productive because the mathematical structure of superposition, interference, and measurement captures the non-classical aspects of how astrological influence is reported to operate contextual, correlational, and apparently non-local. Which we always hear a lot about, like this non-local space field that we're on. So I'm really excited to bring this to you guys. Hold up. Alright, so, and then we even get this right here. It says future research should investigate whether specific orbital resonances produce physical field configurations whose symmetry groups correspond to the SU2 or SU3 structures employed in particle physics. I will be making this document readily available with the link in the description, so please subscribe, like, comment, share if you dare and care. This is going to be very, very big when people actually notice this channel exists and I am capable of doing something. Hopefully. Maybe I shouldn't even talk like that, like, at all. It's just my Pisces stellium. Like a complete fatalist. I'm just like, I try hard. I have over 900 videos. I have like 119 subscribers. I'm not ungrateful. At the same time, my videos are not monetized. In fact, I just got copyright striked because I made a video reading a few chapters out of a book, and I got copyright striked by fucking a book company. I'm not gonna name their name and get in more trouble, but I had to delete my video earlier, and I might have deleted some other videos because the way this platform works is that if you're a man, of course you'll be famous on YouTube. Is like, that's the thing about the patriarchal world, is that if you have a penis attached to you and testicles, you're automatically seen as a god. Automatically, because God is a man, so therefore every man is God. Every man has to be higher than thou, higher than women, able to rape women, violate us, tell us how much we suck every single day. Meanwhile, you know, they're the ones that mainly populate our prison system. But if you're a man and you're on YouTube, you're able to upload just even a video, just one single video with your face in it, and blow up and get millions of views, or in my opinion, hundreds of thousands of views. Meanwhile, if you're a female and you're talking about your story, let alone a detransitioned female, we have to deal with the bottom of the barrel as an audience, it seems like, especially if you're a minority, which doesn't help my case, it seems like. But classical astrological doctrine and quantum language. Let's talk about this, guys. Let's talk about this. My 119 subscribers, and I barely get any views. I know you guys are still subscribed, but we only get like 1 to 2 views on every video I make every single fucking day. But anyways, I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. The classical astrological categories, as we can see here, I've talked about this in previous videos multiple times. Like I said, I have over 900 videos. Most of them are about astrology. Barely have any views. Meanwhile, people like Kim White and Archie Dunlap, you know, are white men, so they get all the views in the world. So, essential dignity. We have domicile, exaltation, detriment, and fall. And we have accidental dignity, angularity, phase, and sect. And we find natural quantum analogs. Okay? So what that looks like is, if we clearly see the table on screen, I see the domicile and the rulership, where I also see exaltation, detriment, fall. It's almost like these are our essential dignities, while we also have our accidental dignities, including retrograde motion, cazimi, and combust in this table. So we have a clear definition of what everything is, and I'm telling you guys what that is, or in the quantum meaning. So astrological meaning is right here. That's our ASTRO, and here's our quantum meaning. So our QUANTUM. All right, and then we have our dignities. We'll just say diggin'. So for domicile rulership, we know it's a planet that's strongest in its own sign, like Mercury in Virgo or Mercury in Gemini. I prefer Mercury in Virgo, but either way, it's Mercury. So quantum, we see it's a ground state eigenvalue, all right, minimum energy, and it's a stable configuration. Now we go to the exaltation, and we see it's a planet elevated in a foreign sign. meaning in quantum, an excited state, enhanced amplitude, unstable but powerful. And a planet in its detriment, we see it's a planet in opposition to its domicile. In quantum, it's an anti-resonant state, destructive interference with reduced amplitude. Okay? In the fall of a planet, it's a planet in opposition to its exaltation. In quantum meaning, it's strongly anti-resonant, maximum decoherence from eigenbases. An angular planet in astrology, the astrological meaning is near the ascendant, the midheaven, the descendant, or the imum colae. Okay? In the quantum meaning, it's near measurement eigenstate, maximally expressed probability. I feel like I'm making this shit very easy for people, but maybe just people don't care enough. But as soon as somebody dies, it's like the end of the world, right? Unless you had a lot of haters, then. And most of your haters were men. Oh boy. Oh my god, she was a fucking femcel. She was a grifter. I hear all the verbiage now. It's terrible, but honestly, God bless this perfect shitstorm. Shout out Penelope Scott and Sigretta Hagel. She's like, God bless this perfect shitstorm. I hope it takes me with it. Retrograde motion. So that's when a planet appears backward. Okay. We know in our quantum meaning it's a phase reversal, negative phase velocity component. Interesting. And we see with the planet being Cazimi, it's within 17 of Sun. Not 17 degrees, though. In its constructive resonance, it's solar node with amplitude enhancement. That's the quantum meaning. Now, when we see a planet that's combust, we know it's a planet within 8 degrees of the Sun. And the quantum meaning is solar decoherence with signal noise from dominant field source. Now, I've talked about aliens a lot on this channel, and I like to say I am a fish alien because I have a Pisces stellium in the 11th house in my Western chart. Sidereal, technically it's a Aquarius stellium with a Capricorn ascendant, which means double Saturn. But that just goes to show why my life has had so much craziness and weird challenges that just don't make sense to me. Still to this day, even though, you know, I can't get into it in this video. Alright, so we just saw that table, and that was our classical astrological dignities and their quantum mechanical structural analogs. Okay? Very clear. Now, I'm going to talk about the quantum field theory and the astroplenum. So, in quantum field theory, QFT, what we identify as particles are local excitations of underlying quantum fields that permeate all of space-time. Okay? So the electron field, the photon field, the Higgs field, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but these are the fundamental ontological constituents of physical reality, and particles are the quantized ripples. People know a lot about black holes, or at least they think they do. Maybe they don't even know the half of it. Maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't know what he's talking about because he thinks Mercury retrograde is just bullshit. He doesn't even believe in astrology. He doesn't even know what astrology is. I mean, could I get sued for defamation? I'm saying this in my opinion. It comes off as if he doesn't know what he's talking about when he talks about astrology. Please don't give me a lawsuit. You have to be really careful with what you say nowadays. It's insane. This is exactly why people... You know what? I gotta be really careful on YouTube. Anyways, so by extension, we propose that the astrological field, tentatively designated, is a structured low-energy excitation of the quantum vacuum with the following properties. First, we see it couples selectively to biological information processing systems, the nervous system. Second, its configuration is sensitive to the positions of mass concentrations, planets, through space-time curvature effects on zero-point fluctuations. And third, we see it exhibits non-local correlations consistent with quantum entanglement across astronomical distances. So this is very interesting to me. I mean, maybe I'm geeking out over the wrong things here, or maybe not. Maybe I'm just meant to be a misfit. That's what happens when you have a Pisces stellium. So, or let alone Aquarius stellium. So this formula here, we see, it says it's a proposed Lagrangian density for the astrological field, where is the space-time metric tensor encoding planetary gravitational distortions of the vacuum. So the potential term encodes the coupling between the astrological field and the local space-time curvature generated by planetary mass distributions. As planet positions change, the landscape of this potential evolves, producing the time-varying astrological field configuration recorded by the tropical zodiac in the 12-house system. Let's talk about the correspondence principle and astrological limits. Bohr's correspondence principle states that quantum mechanics must reproduce classical mechanics in the limit of large quantum numbers. For the astrological framework, an analogous correspondence principle operates. In the limit of an extremely large ensemble of birth charts, the quantum probability distributions should converge to the classical statistical correlation studied by empirical researchers such as Michel Gauquelin. We've also talked about it on the channel. The famous Mars effect, the statistical excess of professional athletes born with Mars angular in the natal chart, is precisely the type of classical limit correlation that a properly formulated quantum astrological theory should reproduce as its large N approximation. And now we have our technical note down here, the Gauquelin problem. Michel Gauquelin, we even get his actual year he was born to the year he died, conducted large-scale statistical studies of the relationship between natal planet positions and professional achievement. His Mars effect, higher prevalence of Mars in angular positions among top athletes, achieved statistical significance in several independent datasets. The result remains controversial. Subsequent meta-analysis produced conflicting conclusions. Whether genuine or artifactual, the Gauquelin data sets provide the most rigorous empirical constraint on any proposed quantum astrological mechanism. Any viable theory must either explain or accommodate these findings. I have so many people in my stream on Meet Me. I better tell them to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now, because I will be famous in less than a year, less than 2 years. We're going to blow up because nobody's ever made a video or a textbook dedicated to quantum astrology and human origins in their entire fucking life. I know, I promise you, there's other astrologers that might have talked about quantum astrology, but has anyone in their fucking life actually made a quantum astrology human origins textbook? Technically, I had Claude Anthropic AI help me make this, but a lot of people are going to have AI agents help them make things and say it's their AI agent. This is the world we live in now, and like, in my opinion, I'm the first to come up with the quantum astrology thing. A lot of people will sit here and just tell you about the bare minimum in regards to astrology when I really want to get into the science of it and figure out why we're really here. I have a chapter 2 that Claude Anthropic AI helped me create, Human Origins and Stellar Nucleosynthesis, the Cosmic Forging of Biological Matter and the Stellar Ancestry of Consciousness. Now the first argument is, and I've said this in previous videos multiple times, this isn't, in my opinion, even an argument. People believe in God, I believe in science, and people just choose to be patriarchal and stupid and believe in one man created everything, when in my opinion, and it is a fact in my opinion, we are stardust. Absolutely. Call me an atheist, call me Tom Cruise's fucking adopted Negro because I believe in Scientology, which I actually don't believe in Scientology, I believe in astrology 100%. Call it spirituality, whatever you will. The nuclear astrophysics of human chemistry. This is all, it all comes back to science and math. You don't need one man that created everything to be the mathematician, the geometrician, the carpenter, the this and that and everything and all be all. No man can be every one thing. That's why men are so angry at women, because apparently women think that men can be everything for them. And I've had that thought before. I've had my own mother tell me when I was growing up as a little girl that I should get a boyfriend or a husband that pays for everything that I want. And what that does to a little girl is you're setting her up for abusing her man in a way that she doesn't even understand. And so people have relied on one man creating everything, and I think that's hurting our men. I think that's why men want to be women, is because there is a lot of pressure on men, and there is a lot of pressure on women too, which I've talked about in other videos. So that's the dichotomy of being a human being. That's the nastiness of being a human. Whether you're male, whether you're female, you can't win. You can't. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And I had to learn that the hard way by being on testosterone gel for 7 months at the age of 19 years old, going into a gender clinic, thinking that I was a man, thinking that I was a transvestite, that I was able to change myself overnight, knowing that I could never get someone pregnant. I don't have a penis. I don't have testicles. I have a vagina. I have a uterus, and I have ovaries to get pregnant. It is in my karma to get pregnant and get married and figure out stuff. But people are going to have to wake up, and Saturn's going to wake up something inside of you when you realize it's too late in a few years, or even a few months, few weeks. So be my guest. You know, people can dig their own graves. I'm doing it right over here. I'm drinking. I'm over here drunk. I've drinking 11.1% alcohol by volume, beatboxes all day long. I'm drinking. I'm smoking. I feel obliterated. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. You can say it's unprofessional. You can say, oh, well, you're not someone that anyone should ever do business with. I'm 21 years old. This is normal. Call it the sophomore slump. Shout out Penelope Scott, Cigarette Hagio. I might be sober in a few years, but for now, I don't see why people are so judgmental to people just, you know, never mind. We're talking too much about random things. We got to get into this because we have a lot to talk about. So, first off, the nitrogen in our DNA, the calcium in our teeth, and I like that this is a quote, the iron in our blood, the carbon in our apple pies were made in the interiors of collapsing stars. We are made of star stuff. This is a quote by Carl Sagan from 1980. Cosmos. Look it up, please, because I didn't even actually come up with the idea to have this quotation in there. The human body is composed of approximately 7 multiplied by 10, 27 squared, 10 squared by 27 atoms. Does anybody have any idea what the fuck? Let's even get on the calculator. What is 7 multiplied by 10 to the power of 27? Excluding hydrogen, which dates to Big Bang nucleosynthesis. Okay, every heavier atom in the body was synthesized through nuclear reactions in stellar interiors or during supernova explosions. We see oxygen 65% by mass, carbon 18%, nitrogen 3%, calcium 1.5%, phosphorus 1%, and iron, traces essential to hemoglobin. All emerged from the thermonuclear furnaces of stars that lived and died before the sun formed 4.6 billion years ago. My goodness. People, this is a lot of science and math. Why would you go to church and pray to something you've never seen or heard actually physically in your life, but you think you feel it, instead of reading about what the universe actually is? Why? Why would you waste your life like that? That's such a fucking waste of time. And I don't care who this offends. Like, I don't care if it doesn't matter to me, because if you're going to sit up here and say, I'm not going to learn astrology because it goes against my religion, you need to look into what the matter is with you, because apparently God created everything but astrology. Apparently God just decided to come up with Aries through Pisces in the solar system that we have and the entire fucking layout for whatever reason. Because it just doesn't matter, apparently, to anybody. But fuck me. This is exactly why we have people that are pretty stupid and going into gender clinics because they're confused about everything, because public school doesn't teach this. They teach you to be a slave. They teach you to go to work, go to your 9 to 5, get your little bit of money, be able to afford the next day, but don't actually learn anything. Don't actually use your critical thinking skills. Don't actually be an individual and learn how to be responsible for yourself without changing yourself in ways that are beyond comprehensible. Like, go get a tattoo or something, that's fine, but hormones, dude, to change everything? I wish I could have told myself so many times, and I wish I have so much in my heart that I just have to let go of and not regret, because it happened to me for a reason. And my life is happening to me for a reason. It's my karma. In the name of the universe. I believe in it. I believe in the universe wholeheartedly. All my fashion, all my body and bones goes to the universe. So, this is not metaphor. It is nuclear physics, all right? Literal science, physics, nuclear physics. The astrological claim that the human being is intimately connected to the heavenly bodies is at this most literal level a statement of established astrophysical fact. The question for quantum astrology is not whether we are of stellar origin. We demonstrably are, but whether that stellar origin entails ongoing, dynamic relationships with the surviving members of our cosmic family, the sun, the planets, and the visible stars. Okay. I really hope I can get a telescope by the end of this year. It's a really big goal I have, is to get a telescope and just start doing, like mapping out astrology charts by hand as if we're in the fucking 1900s. I'm gonna learn everything from scratch. I got 2 books. One of them is The Combination of Stellar Influences by Reinhold Eberton, where this book explains the development of cosmobiology, which uses the 90-degree dial and teaches the methods of the progressive school of astrology through the interpretation of stellar bodies and other astronomical points in the individual's chart. So this book actually came out by Reinhold Eberton. I want to say, let's see. This book came out in 1940. Or was it? The title of the German edition is Kombination der Gestirne Influssi. This book, I think, came out in 1940, but it says copyright 1940, 1950, 1960, 1972 by Eberton Verlag, Reinhold Eberton. But as we can see in the book, like I would like to read an excerpt of just something it says. Like when it talks about Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, Reinhold Eberton on Jupiter, he says Jupiter is, at least, and I have Jupiter in Libra, so I'll read it for Jupiter in Libra. So, Jupiter in Libra, a sense of justice, a gift for conversation, the enjoyment of social contact, popularity, a striving for public work, an easygoing nature, dependence or reliance on other people. And I have experienced that before, because what happens with Jupiter is, of course, we've spoken about this multiple times, is, you know, my home planet that created me, my Piscean stellium, is, a planet of expansion. It's a gas planet. It's the biggest planet we have in our solar system. It's an expansion planet. It'll touch something and it'll expand. So whenever I touch liquor, I drink more. Whenever I smoke weed, I want more. Whenever I masturbate, I want to do it again. That's Jupiter. That is literally, and also Rahu and Ketu. We get into Rahu and Ketu. I have Rahu in Aries and Ketu in Libra. Rahu's in my 12th house with Ketu in the 6th house. It is a challenging placement. I wouldn't wish the axes on anybody, but we're all here for our own karma. And I'm not going to sit here and say, woe is me, because I know other people have had it way worse than me. And in fact, I've met them in real life when I was in Denver, Colorado. So I'm rambling on. Let's go and talk about nucleosynthesis pathways from hydrogen to iron. So we'll first we're going to start with Big Bang nucleosynthesis, and that's BBN. Okay, so in the first 3 minutes after the Big Bang, and yes, I'm saying the Big Bang as in the Big Bang quote-unquote theory, even though it's, in my opinion, a fact. The Big Bang did happen. There is no Jesus Christ or figure that created everything in the world with just his cum. He jerked off one day and made everything. It doesn't work like that. So when temperatures exceeded 10 to the power of 9 K, the universe synthesized hydrogen, also known as H, and helium-4, 4He, deuterium, 2H, and trace quantities of lithium-7, 7Li. These primordial abundances, roughly 75% H, 25% He by mass. So you have to think about this, guys. Like, when we were all just nothing, we were all just a soul, a spirit, and we were all collided together in this maybe a big black hole of nothingness, but somehow we all felt each other's collective consciousness. And the universe exceeded its temperatures with 10 to the power of 9K. Already grabbed hold of that synthesized hydrogen and helium-4 and deuterium, trace quantities of lithium. So, as we can see here, they constitute the initial conditions from which all subsequent stellar chemistry evolved. Literally, our science tells us why we're even in this fucking dimension in the first place. And people are still out here going to church and dealing with their priests that are literally rapists and pedophiles. This is telling us. This literally tells us this equals a 3D world we're living in. We're doing the science and the math right now. In my opinion, this is clear as day. Maybe it's just Jupiter the preacher coming out in me, and I want to believe in this. Call it stupid, if you will. And I'd say your religion's stupid. Then we get into an argument, and you might kill me. That's just the world we live in now, where you have to be concerned about whether you'll die from... And I want to quote Sinead O'Connor from her song Black Boys on Mopeds, when she said, "To say what you feel is to dig your own grave." I couldn't agree more. To say what you feel is to dig your own grave. You can't even say what you feel. As a woman, as a black woman, as a detransitioned black woman, you can't even say what you want without being scared that someone's gonna kill you. Probably a guy. Anyways, we have the proton-proton chain, or our PP chain, to be funny, giggity. Stars with masses below approximately 1.3 solar masses, including our sun, fuse hydrogen primarily through the proton-proton chain. So what that looks like, right here, the PP chain net reaction. We have our 4 protons fuse into one helium-4 nucleus, releasing 2 positrons, 2 electron neutrinos, and gamma radiation totaling around 26.7 MeV per cycle. So, excuse me. We have our formulas here. In 2.1a, we have 2.1b, and we have 2.1c. So with 2.1a, we see h squared by 1, squared, and we add that squared, h squared 1, adding h squared by another 1, or h to the power of 1, h to the power of 1, we get h to the power of 2, and then we add e to the power of adding that symbol, e to the power of plus, and we add v underscore e in 2.1a. And then in 2.1b, we go further. We see h to the power of 2, add h to the power of 1, what do we get? he to the power of 3, and we add y. And what we get in 2.1c is he to the power of 3, adding he to the power of 3. We get he to the power of 4. And we add 2 to the power of 1, h, adding 26.7 MeV. Okay? And now let's look at our CNO cycle. So more massive stars like M, which is greater than 1.3 M, fuse hydrogen primarily via the carbon-nitrogen-oxygen, CNO, catalytic cycle, in which carbon acts as a nuclear catalyst. So in 2.2a, we see C to the power of 12, adding H to the power of 1, and we get N to the power of 13, adding Y. So then we get C to the power of 13, adding E to the power of plus sign, adding V underscore E, and in 2.2b, what we get in return is C to the power of 13, adding H to the power of 1, we get N to the power of 14, adding Y. Okay? This is our CNO cycle. N to the power of 14, adding H to the power of 1, we get O to the power of 15, adding Y. Therefore, N to the power of 15, adding E to the power of plus sign, adding V underscore E. And Finally, in 2.2d, we get n to the power of 15, adding h to the power of 1, we get c to the power of 12, adding he to the power of 4. So CNO net result is 4h, and we get he4, adding 2e, adding 2ve, adding 3y, adding 24.7 MeV. Carbon is regenerated. The cycle dominates in the hot cores of main sequence stars above 1.3 solar masses. Okay? Now we look at the triple alpha process in carbon synthesis. So the synthesis of carbon, alright, arguably the most biologically essential element, occurs in red giant stars through the triple alpha process, in which 3 helium-4 nuclei, alpha particles, fuse to form carbon-12. The Hoyle state, a resonance in carbon-12 discovered by Fred Hoyle in 1953, is a remarkable example of fine-tuning. Without this precisely placed quantum resonance, carbon production in stellar interiors would be negligibly small, and carbon-based life would be impossible. So in 2.3a, we see he to the power of 4. Adding he to the power of 4 becomes be to the power of 8, so unstable, and t equals 10 to the power of negative 16s. The triple alpha process, we get be in 2.3b, b to the power of 8, adding he to the power of 4, becoming c star to the power of 12, becoming c to the power of 12, adding 2y. And we have a technical note, 2.1, the Hoyle state as cosmic fine-tuning. So the Hoyle state at 7.6544 MeV in carbon negative 12, we'll say, lies within 0.0003 MeV of the combined energy of Be to the power of 8, adding He to the power of 4. This extraordinary precision, which is less than 0.004%, appears to be required for carbon-based life to exist at all. And Fred Hoyle interpreted this as evidence for what he called a super-intellect that had monkeyed with nuclear physics. Modern anthropic cosmology frames it as a selection effect. We observe these constants because we exist only in universes where carbon can form. Quantum astrology notes that this fine-tuning is as much a celestial influence on biological possibility as any planetary transit. So on to the supernova dispersal in the interstellar medium. So elements heavier than iron, Fe Z equals 26, cannot be produced through exothermic fusion. The iron 56 nucleus represents the peak of the nuclear binding energy curve, beyond which fusion is endothermic. Elements from cobalt to uranium are therefore synthesized through neutron capture processes. The S process in AGB stars and the R process in neutron star merger supernovae, and dispersed into the interstellar medium ISM through stellar winds and supernova explosions. The solar system formed approximately 4.6 multiplied by 10 to the power of 9 years ago from a molecular cloud containing the processed material of multiple previous stellar generations. The iron in human hemoglobin carries a nuclear signature of type La supernova enrichment. The iodine in the thyroid gland of our process neutron capture. The gold and ceremonial jewelry of neutron star mergers detected by LIGO, or LIGO. So we have hydrogen, H, as well as oxygen, O, carbon, C, nitrogen, N, calcium, Ca, phosphorus, P, and sulfur, S. We see that hydrogen, 60% atoms, oxygen, 26% atoms, carbon, 11% atoms, nitrogen, 1.4% atoms, calcium, 0.22% atoms, phosphorus, 0.13% atoms, and sulfur, 0.4% atoms. We also see hydrogen is Big Bang, BBN, primordial, Oxygen is a CNO cycle adding the type 2 SN. Carbon is triple alpha, red giants. Nitrogen is CNO cycle burning. Calcium silicon burning SN. Phosphorus also silicon burning SN. And sulfur is oxygen burning SN. We see that hydrogen is moon, water is primordial ocean, while oxygen is Venus and Jupiter life force. Carbon is Saturn structure, organic chemistry. Nitrogen is Mercury, neural signaling, synapses. Calcium is Saturn, moon, bone structure, calcium. Phosphorus is Mercury, ATP, DNA, backbone. And sulfur is Saturn, Mars, sulfur bridges. We also see for iron, Fe, zinc, Zn, and iodine I, we have stuff. So for iron, it's trace, essential, silicon burning, NSE, and Mars, hemoglobin, war, blood. Zinc is trace, enzymatic, S process, AGB stars, mercury enzyme cofactor. Iodine is trace, thyroid, R process, NS merger, and the moon, rhythmic function, as well as our thyroid. So that's our primary elements of the human body, their stellar nucleus, synthetic origins, and classical astrological correspondences, illustrating the deep structural homology between planetary symbolism and cosmic chemistry. Alright, DNA, cosmic ray, mutagenesis, and stellar influence on evolution. We have the proposition that stars continue to influence biological evolution after the initial nucleosynthetic contribution, supported by the documented relationship between galactic cosmic ray, GCR flux, and terrestrial mutation rates. Okay? Cosmic rays, predominantly high-energy protons and atomic nuclei, accelerated by supernova remnants and other astrophysical processes, penetrate Earth's atmosphere and interact with biological macromolecules, including DNA. Okay? So GCR-induced mutations have been proposed as a driver of evolutionary novelty, particularly during epochs of reduced solar activity. Low sunspot cycles reduce the solar wind's modulation of incoming cosmic ray flux. The sun's magnetic cycle, an 11-year solar activity period, thus modulates the terrestrial mutation rate through the heliospheric current sheet. This mechanism represents a physically grounded pathway by which the sun's activity cycle, tracked by astrologers as a solar return and related transits, exerts measurable influence on biological systems. Now we're getting into even more how astrology is literally affecting us through cosmic rays. We know that there is so much science in this. There's so much science involved. In math. Qualitative relationship, galactic cosmic ray flux. So it's inversely proportional to solar wind flux, which varies periodically with the 11-year solar cycle. Now we talk about non-locality, entanglement, and the mechanism of astrological aspect, going over Bell's theorem, the EPR paradox, and synchronicity as quantum correlation. Einstein, Podolsky, Rosen, and a scandal of non-locality. So in 1935, Albert Einstein, Boris Podolsky, and Nathan Rosen published a thought experiment designed to demonstrate the incompleteness of quantum mechanics. They described two particles in an entangled state. Upon measurement of one particle, the state of its partner is instantaneously determined, regardless of the spatial separation between them. Einstein found the spooky action at a distance spook hefty Fernwirkung Spookhefte Fernwerken philosophically unacceptable and argued it implied quantum mechanics was incomplete, requiring hidden variables to account for the correlation. So the EPR scenario posits two particles with correlated spin states. If the spin of particle A is measured along axis A and found to be, then the spin of particle B along the same axis is instantaneously determined to be, regardless of whether B is 1 meter or 1 light year distant. The wave function of the two-particle system is, as we see this formula, the EPR Bell-Singlet state. Maximally entangled 2-qubit state, measurement of spin along any axis, gives perfectly anti-correlated results, demonstrating non-classical, non-local correlations. Let's talk about Bell's theorem and the death of local hidden variables. So in 1964, John Stuart Bell derived an inequality that any local hidden variable theory must satisfy. Experimental tests of Bell's inequality, most definitively by Ellen Asbeck in 1982, and subsequent loophole-free experiments, demonstrated consistent violations, establishing that quantum non-locality is a genuine feature of physical reality, not an artifact of incomplete information. Alright, so now we see this equation here. We have EAB subtracting EAC. We have lesser than 1 adding EBC. So the CHSH Bell inequality, EAB, denotes the correlation function of spin measurements along axis A and B. Any local realistic theory satisfies this bound. And we see quantum mechanics predicts in experiments confirm violations up to Cyril-Son's bound. So, the experimental violation of Bell's inequality establishes that the physical world cannot be simultaneously local, no faster than light influences, and realistic. Physical properties exist independently of measurement. Nature appears to be non-local in a very specific sense, while entanglement cannot be used to transmit classical information faster than light. The correlations between entangled systems are genuinely non-local. So we have Jung's synchronicity as quantum correlation. Carl Gustav Jung, in collaboration with the physicist Wolfgang Pauli, proposed the concept of synchronicity in 1952. In a causal connecting principle that accounts for meaningful coincidences that cannot be explained by conventional causality. Jung describes synchronicity as a temporal coincidence of psychic and physical events connected not by causality but by meaning. Quantum astrological interpretation of synchronicity identifies it with quantum non-local correlation. The birth chart does not cause life events through classical mechanical transmission, but rather correlates with them through an entanglement relationship established at the natal moment. This interpretation preserves the letter of Bell's theorem, no superluminal information transmission, while accounting for the observed correspondences. Okay. Quick technical note on the Pauli-Jung exchange. Wolfgang Pauli, one of the founding fathers of quantum mechanics and co-discoverer of the exclusion principle bearing his name, was simultaneously a patient of and intellectual collaborator with Jung. The correspondence led to the joint publication, The Interpretation of Nature and the Psyche in 1952, in which Pauli contributed a study of Kepler's relationship to Robert Fludd, an early modern astrologer. Pauli is reported to have said, "It is my personal opinion that, in the science of the future, reality will neither be psychic nor physical, but somehow both and somehow neither. This prescient statement anticipates the quantum astrological synthesis." Now we look at our astrological aspects as quantum interference. So, in classical astrology, we know an aspect is a specific angular separation between two planets measured along the ecliptic. We have a conjunction, which is 0 degrees, sextile, which is 60 degrees, square, which is 90 degrees, trine is 120 degrees, opposition is 180 degrees. We have the minor aspects. So, the strength and nature of each aspect reflect the harmonic relationship between the zodiacal sectors involved. In quantum astrological formalism, aspects correspond to interference terms in the two-planet joint probability amplitude. So if A and B are the state vectors of planets A and B, the joint field amplitude at the natal moment includes the interference term. So aspect interference function, we see 0 underscore AB is the angular separation. N is the harmonic number, n equals 1 opposition, n equals 2 square, n equals 3 trine, n equals 6 sextile. Constructive interference, see I is greater than 0, corresponds to flowing aspects, and destructive is I being lesser than 0 to challenging aspects. We have our complete table of astrological aspects interpreted as harmonic interference modes of the two-planet joint probability amplitude field. So right here, see our conjunction, our sextile. So conjunction is 0 degrees, n equals infinity, unison. Okay? Resonant superposition, synthesis amplification. Our sextile is 60 degrees, n equals 6, the sixth harmonic. Constructive, adding sign, or adding symbol. We get opportunity, ease. We have a square that's 90 degrees, n equals 4, the fourth harmonic. Partially destructive, tension, dynamic stress. While a trine is 120 degrees, n equals 3, third harmonic. Constructive, so we add flowing natural harmony. Quincunx is 150 degrees, n equals 12, the 12th harmonic. Incoherent, mixed, adjustment, ambiguity. And our opposition is 180 degrees, n equals 2, second harmonic, standing wave, polarization, awareness. So now we have the quantum entanglement model of aspect orbs. The classical concept of an orb is the permitted tolerance around an exact aspect angle. It maps naturally onto the concept of quantum coherence length. An aspect with 0 orb represents perfect phase coherence between two planetary field modes. As the orb increases, phase coherence diminishes according to a decoherence envelope. Aspect amplitude as a Gaussian coherence envelope, so 0 is the actual angle, 0 underscore 0 is the exact aspect angle, O is the coherence width equals an orb, A underscore 0 is the amplitude at exact aspect. Gaussian orb model reproduces the classical astrological observation that aspects weaken progressively as the angular separation moves away from exactness. The coherence width, O, varies by planet, whether it's larger, slower planets having wider orbs, consistent with the de Broglie relation, whereby slower moving bodies, smaller p, have longer associated wavelengths and therefore larger coherence lengths. Let's talk about wave function collapse and the natal moment, quantum birth event, decoherence, and the instantiation of individual fate. So we'll begin with the measurement problem and biological individuation. In the measurement problem is quantum mechanics' most profound unresolved conceptual difficulty. When and how does the superposition of quantum states collapse into a definite classical outcome? Before measurement, Schrödinger's cat is both alive and dead. After measurement, it is definitively one or the other. But the theory itself does not specify the boundary between quantum superposition and classical definiteness. The quantum astrological proposal is this: the moment of biological birth, the first independent breath, the severance of the umbilical cord, the transition from intrauterine to extrauterine existence, constitutes a measurement event in the quantum cosmic sense. The individual organism transitions from a subsystem of the mother's biological quantum state, entangled within her system, to an independent quantum system in irreversible entanglement with the ambient cosmic field. We have decoherence theory in the classical birth chart. The modern resolution of the measurement problem invokes decoherence, the rapid entanglement of a quantum system with environmental degrees of freedom, causing the system's quantum interference terms to vanish from any practically observable quantity. The system does not literally collapse to a single state, it becomes entangled with the environment so extensively that no local measurement can detect the interference. The density matrix formalism captures this process. An initial pure state evolves into a mixed state. So we have our formula here. Decoherence, the off-diagonal interference terms of the density matrix P to K with time scale where E_ENV is the characteristic environmental interaction energy. The result is an apparent classical ensemble of outcomes. The natal chart records the precise configuration of the astrological field. At the decoherence moment, the moment when the infant's nascent quantum state entangles irreversibly with the cosmic environment, and the specific eigenstate probability distribution is frozen in as the individual's dispositional field. Now we have the ascendant as quantum interface. The ascendant, which is a rising sign. The zodiacal degree crossing the eastern horizon at the birth moment holds in quantum astrological theory the status of the primary measurement axis, the orientation of the cosmic field relative to the observer at the decoherence event. Its sensitivity to birth time, approximately 1 degree per 4 minutes, makes it the most temporally precise point in the chart, and therefore the most sensitive marker of the exact decoherence configuration. We also see the midheaven, or MC, the zodiacal degree at the highest point of the ecliptic at birth, constitutes the vertical measurement axis, encoding the orientation of the individual's dispositional field relative to the solar system's primary plane of reference. Together, ascendant and midheaven define the two orthogonal measurement axes of the natal quantum coordinate system. So we see a formula that says the natal state vector, the projection of the cosmic quantum state onto the measurement axes defined by the ascendant and midheaven at birth time, t_birth. Quantum Zeno effect and astrological transits. Quantum Zeno effect, or QZE, states that frequent measurement of a quantum system can inhibit its evolution. A watched pot, quantum mechanically speaking, never boils. Conversely, the anti-Zeno effect, AZE, occurs when measurement at certain frequencies accelerates quantum transition. In astrological practice, transits, the real-time positions of planets as they move over natal chart positions, mark periods of renewed interaction between the current cosmic field and the natal quantum state. The quantum Zeno analogy suggests that first exact transits, 0 degrees orb, represent measurement events that briefly collapse the probability amplitude onto the transit's eigenbasis, producing the intensified crystallizing experiences described in astrological literature. Second, applying transits. Approaching correspond to the pre-measurement superposition phase, growing uncertainty, anticipation, and energy buildup. Third is separating transits. Departing represent post-measurement decoherence, the crystallized outcome settling into the classical biographical record. We have a technical note here, 4.1, Saturn return as major decoherence event. So the Saturn return, approximately age 29.5, or I go as far as just say 30. That represents the first complete orbital period of Saturn since birth. Transiting Saturn returns exactly to its natal position. In the quantum Zeno model, this event constitutes a full coherence revival. The Saturn field component of the natal state re-encounters its initial phase configuration. This provides a quantum mechanical basis for the widely documented phenomenology of the Saturn return as a period of fundamental life reckoning, identity consolidation, and karmic accounting, the biographical measurement event of an early adulthood. And now we have the retrocausal interpretation. Some physicists like Price, Sutherland, and Kramer have proposed retrocausal interpretations of quantum mechanics in which future measurement outcomes influence the past preparation of quantum states. Under the two-state vector formalism, or TSVF, of Aronov and Weidmann, a quantum system between preparation and measurement is described by both a forward-evolving state and a backward-evolving state. So, TSVF weak value, the retrocausal expectation of observable O between preparation and post-selection. Weak values can lie outside the eigenvalue spectrum of O, indicating retrocausal influence of future boundary conditions. Applied to astrology, the TSVF suggests that future significant transits, outer planet conjunctions, eclipses to natal points may send backward organizing information that shapes the anticipatory phenomenology of approaching events, providing a quantum mechanical basis for the astrological phenomenon of approaching transit sensitization. We have planetary archetypes as quantum attractor states, morphic fields, archetypal resonance, and the Feynman path integral of destiny. And we'll begin with the archetype and depth psychology and quantum mechanics. So Carl Jung's collective unconscious posits a layer of the psyche shared by all humans and organized around universal patterns called archetypes. The great mother, the hero, the shadow, the self. Now, these are not specific images, but a priori structural tendencies that shape the forms available for psychic experience. The archetype itself is irrepresentable. Only its manifestations, archetypal images, mythological themes, dream figures, are accessible to consciousness. In quantum field theory, the vacuum state is structured by symmetry groups whose generators correspond to conserved quantities. The electroweak force is governed by the SU2 multiplied by U1 symmetry, the strong nuclear force by SU3. These symmetry groups are, in a precise mathematical sense, a priori structural constraints on the available field configurations, analogous to archetypes as a priori constraints on psychic configurations. We propose that the planetary archetypes, Saturn as limitation, time, Jupiter as expansion, wisdom, Mars as drive, conflict, Venus as harmony, beauty, correspond to stable attractor states of the astrological field with distinct symmetry properties. The physical planets in this model are macroscopic indices of these field configurations, not their causes. So now we look and we see the Feynman path integral and the plurality of lives. So Richard Feynman's path integral formulation, of quantum mechanics expresses the amplitude for a particle to travel from point A to point B, all right? As a sum over all possible paths connecting A to B, each weighted by a phase factor, where S is the classical action along that path. And we see the formula, the Feynman path integral. The propagator, K, BA, sums contributions from all conceivable paths xt. Paths near the classical trajectory contribute coherently stationary phase. Quantum effects arise from off-shell paths. So the path integral provides a compelling structural analogy for the plurality of lives implied by a natal chart. The chart specifies a boundary condition, initial quantum state at birth, and an eventual final configuration, the unfolding of the personality's potential over a lifetime, essentially death. So between birth and death, the life unfolds along all possible paths simultaneously. But the observed biographical trajectory corresponds to the stationary phase path of maximum constructive interference. Free will, in this framework, corresponds to the quantum fluctuations around the classical path. The moment-to-moment capacity to deviate from the trajectory of maximum probability, with the amplitude for such deviations governed by the local curvature of the psychological potential landscape. Very interesting here. I'm very intrigued by all of this. We still have a lot to go over. As you see, we're only on page, 24? When we get to page 44, we have a full bibliography and cited works, physics, quantum mechanics, astrophysics, nucleosynthesis, consciousness, quantum biology, all the works being cited. I already said that I used Claude AI Anthropic to help me create this. The beginning of this video. So, and also in my description, it'll say, for legal reasons, all of my videos are incorporating the usage of AI. Just because I do use AI very frequently on the channel, and I am not going to sit here and get in trouble legally. That's the last thing anybody wants, in my opinion at least, is to go to jail or prison and deal with that. So, morphic fields and the memory of form. So, excuse me. Rupert Sheldrake's hypothesis of morphic resonance proposes that biological forms and behaviors are shaped by morphic fields. So now we see where this concept came from. His hypothesis of morphic resonances proposes that biological forms and behaviors are shaped by morphic fields. Non-material templates that carry the accumulated memory of previous instances of similar forms. Morphic resonance acts across time as well as space. A species' developmental pathway is shaped by the accumulated habits of all previous members of that species. While Sheldrake's hypothesis remains outside the scientific consensus, it provides a structurally coherent model for the astrological doctrine of natal archetypes. We see a Saturn-dominant natal chart resonates with the accumulated morphic memory of all previous Saturn-dominant individuals, the field of Saturn archetypal human experience. Transits from Saturn during the life, activate this morphic resonance field, drawing the native into experiential patterns characteristic of the archetype. And we see this formula here, which tells us it is our morphic field correction to natal evolution. So we see M_AST, parentheses, is the morphic resonance operator encoding accumulated archetypal patterns, while K, in parentheses, T, T, is the retarded propagator connecting past morphic imprinting to present state evolution. I'm allowed to say retarded. I had a mild autism diagnosis when I was 8 years old. Just because I was nonverbal. Now that I'm speaking, I'm having some trouble with my throat. Presumably because I'm a heavy smoker and I was on testosterone for 7 months. But planetary symmetry groups and the periodic table of archetypes. So we see the 7 classical planets were organized by Renaissance astrologers into the Chaldean order of decreasing orbital speed. Looks like we have the moon first, then Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. This sequence maps onto the 7-fold symmetry group Z7 and generates the traditional day-planet correspondence. We see Saturday, Saturn, we know Sunday is the Sun, we know Monday is the Moon, etc. So, adding the 3 outer planets, which Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, as well as the major asteroids Chiron, Ceres, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta, expands the symmetry to a richer structure. Excuse me. We propose that the full set of major astrological significators corresponds to the weight states of a representation of an exceptional Lie algebra, possibly G2. In the rank 2, 7-dimensional for the classical septenary, or F4, rank 4, 52-dimensional for the full extended system. And we have our technical note on exceptional Lie algebras and planetary symmetry, which is really cool. So exceptional Lie algebras, we see G2, F4, E6, E7, and E8 arise naturally in unified field theories and string theory compactifications. E8 multiplied by E8 appears as the gauge or gauge symmetry of the heterotic string. Currently the most sophisticated candidate for a theory of everything, the heterotic string. Excuse me. So the weight lattice of G2 has exactly 14 non-zero roots, potentially corresponding to 7 planetary archetypes and 7 anti-archetypes, detriment positions. This correspondence is speculative, presented as a research program rather than an established result. Suggests, however, that the numerical structure of astrological doctrine may reflect deep properties of the Lie algebra symmetries underlying fundamental physics. Let's talk about fixed stars, dark matter, and the Birkeland current web, stellar nuclei, cosmic plasma filaments, and the astrolatus of deep space. I'm still tweaking over this heterotic string because I actually don't know much about this, and I will be doing more research. Okay, so First, we're going to talk about the fixed star lattice as dark matter scaffold. Dark matter, which is talked about a lot, it's the non-luminous, non-baryonic substance that constitutes approximately 27% of the universe's total energy content. Is observed only through its gravitational effects. The anomalous rotation curves of galaxies, gravitational lensing, and the large-scale structure of the cosmic web. Its distribution forms a filamentary network of halos and voids, the cosmic web within which luminous matter, stars, galaxies, is embedded like dew on a spider's web. The fixed stars visible in astrology represent a two-dimensional projection of the three-dimensional dark matter halo surrounding our galaxy. The gravitational focusing effects of dark matter concentrations may produce directionally specific amplification of the astrological field, explaining why certain fixed star directions, notably the four royal stars, the galactic center at 27 degrees Sagittarius, and the supergalactic center at 2 degrees Libra, exhibit unusually potent astrological influence in traditional doctrine. You can read the Birkeland currents and the electric universe model. So Christian Birkeland's discovery in 1908 of field-aligned currents flowing between Earth's polar regions and the magnetosphere initiated the field of space plasma physics. Modern heliospheric physics recognizes that the solar system is permeated by a complex network of plasma currents and magnetic field structures, collectively known as the heliospheric current sheet, or HCS. It's a vast rotating spiral structure extending beyond the orbit of Pluto. Okay, so plasma physicists working in the electric universe paradigm have proposed that Birkeland currents constitute a primary mechanism of energy transmission across the solar system, complementing and in some contexts dominating gravitational effects. If this is valid, this mechanism would provide a physically grounded, non-gravitational pathway for planetary influence on biological systems. This is insane. The planetary bodies would act as modulators of the solar system's plasma circuitry, with Earth's ionosphere and biosphere as the downstream terminal of these currents. Field-aligned Birkeland current density. As we see, this is the parallel conductivity, where E plus V multiplied by B is the plasma, and plasma EMF. P underscore E is electron pressure, while N underscore E is electron density. E is the elementary charge. And the subscript we see here denotes the component parallel to B. I don't know who else wanted to make a quantum astrology textbook with Anthropic Claude AI, but sure. I give it all the credit. I mean, I gave the idea, Claude literally just presented it in PDF format immediately. I suggest you guys use it. AI is meant to be used as a tool to better your own life and whatever that looks like for you. The galactic center as cosmic transpersonal field source. So the galactic center, or GC, located at approximately 26 degrees 57 Sagittarius, marks the direction of Sagittarius A star, the supermassive black hole at the core of the Milky Way, with a mass of approximately 4 multiplied by 10 to the power of 6 solar masses. The GC emits across the electromagnetic spectrum radio waves, X-rays, gamma rays, and generates an intense plasma and particle flux that propagates outward through the galactic medium. So, I apologize if you hear my neighbors outside. My apartment is my apartment currently. But, anywho, in quantum astrological theory, The GC functions as a transpersonal field source, a macroscopic quantum vacuum excitation of extraordinary magnitude whose directionality in the natal chart, house position and planetary aspects to 27 degrees Sagittarius, encodes the native's relationship to the deepest, most impersonal strata of cosmic experience. The dissolution of individual identity into galactic awareness, the experience of cosmic groundlessness characteristic of mystical states. Okay. I will have to leave soon, like probably 11:40, just to be safe, because I have to do a meeting. But before I leave, we'll still see if we can get a little bit more done, and then I'll just merge the videos together so you guys can't tell. But major fixed star lore, we have a full table of our quantum field perimeters. And we see, for example, Algol, which these are obviously our fixed stars, is 26 degrees Taurus, B8V adding K2IV eclipsing binary, 93, Saturn Jupiter. Periodic amplitude modulation binary periodicity, 2.87D. We see for Aldebaran, it's 9 degrees Gemini, K53 red giant, 65, Mars and Mercury, intense microwave emission, watcher of East. We see Rigel, 16 degrees Gemini, B8LA, or is that, I think it's IA, B8IA, blue supergiant, 860 though. Jupiter and Mars, UV dominant, highest luminosity is 120,000 L. Sirius, 13 degrees Cancer, A1V adding DA2, white dwarf, 8.6, Jupiter and Mars, nearest bright star, UV and X-ray companion. Regulus, 0 degrees Virgo, B7V fast rotator, 79, Jupiter Mars, rapid spin, 320 kms, nearly equatorial alignment. All the way down to Spica, which is 23 degrees Libra, B134, and B2V binary, 250, Venus and Mars, X-ray binary, tidal distortion, most benefic. Antares, 9 degrees Sag, M1.5 lab, adding B2.5V, 550, Mars and Jupiter. It's a supergiant, 700 solar radii, near SN candidate. Fomalhaut, 3 degrees Pisces, A3V, adding debris disk, 25, Venus Mercury, prominent debris disk, planet formation zone. So this is our primary fixed stars with spectral classification, stellar physics perimeters, and proposed quantum field nature, correlating classical astrological tradition with modern stellar astrophysics. Gravitational lensing and the stellar focal point. General relativity predicts that mass curves spacetime, causing light and other electromagnetic radiation to be deflected and focused as it passes near massive bodies. The sun's gravitational focal point, where light from a distant star is brought to focus by the sun's gravitational lens, lies at a distance of approximately 550 AU from the sun. This is within the inner Oort cloud and represents a natural amplification node for stellar radiation. If the astrological field propagates as an electromagnetic or electromagnetic analog signal, the sun's gravitational lens would provide an amplification of incoming stellar signals by a factor potentially reaching 10 to the power of 8 for sources near the focal axis. This mechanism would explain why certain fixed star conjunctions with the sun, helical rising, solar exaltation points, are considered uniquely powerful in traditional doctrine. And we see solar gravitational lens amplification. So R underscore is a solar radius. Well, you see, this is just a signal wavelength. D underscore focal equals 550 AU is the focal distance. We see D underscore is the Earth-Sun distance. Peak amplification occurs for sources precisely aligned with the solar axis. All right, moving on to our lunar nodes, quantum interference and karmic probability amplitudes, the double slit analogy, nodal axis decoherence, and the physics of fate. So we're talking about the double slit experiment as nodal analog, okay? The double slit experiment is quantum mechanics' most celebrated demonstration of wave-particle duality. When electrons or photons or even molecules are directed at a barrier with two slits, an interference pattern appears on the detector screen, demonstrating that the particles exhibit wave-like superposition. Crucially, when a detector is placed to determine which slit the particle traversed, the interference pattern collapses to a classical two-peak distribution. The lunar nodal axis presents a structural analogy of striking precision. We see the north node, the ascending intersection of the lunar orbit with the ecliptic, represents the measurement slit of future possibility, the direction of constructive interference between past karmic patterns and future evolutionary potential, producing the characteristic experience of effort, awkwardness, and magnetic attraction that accompanies north node engagement. The south node, the descending intersection, represents the already measured slit of past pattern, the familiar interference pattern of prior life or prior developmental experience, where the probability wave has already collapsed into a classical distribution of habitual responses. The full nodal axis thus encodes the tension between quantum superposition, north node, possibility, uncertainty, growth edge, and classical decoherence, the south node, established pattern, habituation, and the already measured. And we have our nodal state vector. A and B are complex amplitudes for north and south node components. The squared moduli gives the probability of expressing each node's qualities in a given life situation. Natal planets conjunct either node weight the superposition asymmetrically. All right, eclipse mechanics as wave function collapse events. Solar and lunar eclipses occur when the sun, moon, and earth align in or near the nodal axes. Solar eclipses require new moon near a node within 18.5 degrees. Lunar eclipses require full moon near a node. The 18-year, 11-day Saros cycle governs the repetition of eclipse families, each Saros series producing similar geometric alignments and carrying a consistent thematic signature. In quantum astrological interpretation, an eclipse on or near a natal planet or angle constitutes a major decoherence event. The extraordinary alignment of three major mass concentrations, Sun, Moon, and the Earth, produces a temporary extraordinary concentration of the astrological field that forces a rapid involuntary collapse of the natal probability amplitude toward the eclipse's eigenbasis. This is experienced subjectively as events that feel fated, irresistible, and profoundly reorganizing. Now we see our karmic probability amplitudes. So the concept of karma, it's a big one. The principle that past actions create tendencies shaping future experience finds a quantum mechanical structural analog in the path-dependent phase accumulation of the Feynman propagator. In the path integral formalism, the phase of each path's amplitude depends on the entire history of the path. The total action accumulated from t equals 0, birth, to the present moment. So karmic phase accumulation. You see the accumulated phase along the biographical trajectory. L is the karmic Lagrangian, encoding the psychospiritual dynamics of the life. And this phase shapes future interference patterns and therefore future probability distributions. So past actions, the south node domain, accumulate phase in a karmic integral, creating constructive or destructive interference with future possibilities, the north node domain. The 18.6-year nodal return represents a phase of complete cycle, a moment of karmic coherence revival, when the accumulated phase returns to its initial value and the interference pattern is reestablished at full amplitude.